Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome back to Adventure Capital, where we not only discuss the entrepreneurial journeys and adventures with founders who have raised capital on Wefunder, but also the different resource providers and mentors helping founders along the way. Huzzah! In this interview, we chat with Michael Martocci, founder and CEO of SwagUp, an integrated platform to create, automate, and distribute high-quality swag anywhere. Before we get on with the podcast, we're required to let everyone know that anything we say here should not be interpreted as investment advice, recommendations, or soliciting investments in any company. All companies raising on Wefunder are given an equal opportunity to participate in the podcast based on the progress of their campaign. Wefunder gang, take it away.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Adventure Capital. Really pleased to be joined today by Michael Martocci, who's the CEO and founder of SwagUp. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
Maybe you can start by giving anyone that doesn't yet know the high-level overview on what you guys are building at SwagUp.
Well, I think there's plenty of people that don't know who we are. We're still
Let's
still
change that. Let's
small.
change that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, SwagUp is basically, a tech-enabled platform that takes the friction out of the whole process of creating and distributing branded merchandise. So if you're, fast-growing startup or, even like a restaurant or, a large enterprise company, usually you're using branded swag and merchandise for all different reasons, whether it's for your employees, your customers, your partners, your investors. There's so many different ways in which swag can be leveraged to build these connections with your community. But the process has historically been pretty janky and manual, and stitching together a lot of disparate parties to make it happen. And we saw an opportunity to use technology to kind of just clean up the process and become an end-to-end solution for these companies to manage the process of creating and managing their inventory and distributing out to people. So we've been at it for about 5-ish years. Still a lot more to do, but we work with about 5,000 different companies at this point. It's been a pretty fun journey. So
that's awesome. Can you say a little bit more about, the problem that companies are usually experiencing when they're distributing swag and, how you guys solve that for them? Yeah,
I mean, when we started out about 5 years ago, you would talk to all these different companies and they'd all have different answers for how they manage this process. It's one of these like very fragmented industries where there's 30,000 different swag companies and distributors in North America alone. And, some of them are using 5 different vendors, 10 different vendors, and they have, storage closets full of different products in their office and boxes in the empty office that,
we've all been there. And they all the t-shirt sizes in that closet are XXX,
oh, yeah.
XL.
Yeah. All the extras. So, you get some new hire and they start tomorrow and you're like, shit, do we have any like swag to give to them? It's like, all right, let's go look in the closet and see what we got. And we've got this oversized shirt and this notebook that nobody else wanted. And you have no idea kind of what the inventory is. And and especially in like this age of remote work and kind of global companies, how do you get that stuff into people's hands to make them really feel like they're part of something, even when they're not there physically? And that process was pretty much like, okay, let's have some interns pack up boxes on the end of the day and take them over to like the postal service or FedEx or something and get those out to people. And you end up having people like who are heads of marketing or heads of HR or executive assistants kind of running point on these projects, and they're pulling their hair out because it's taking them 10, 20 hours a week to kind of coordinate all the logistics. And it's just like, okay, let's help make this process much simpler for people and take the stress out of it so that they can handle kind of the fun parts of it, like the product selection, the design, and then kind of give them some superpowers to scale it up.
The product feature that really kind of grabbed my attention when I was talking to your team a few weeks back was the one where if I want to send swag to Wefunder customers, I have them basically go to a landing page. I email them, say, hey, go to this page and enter your information. They go there, they enter their size, they enter their address, and like, I don't need to do anything. You guys take that information, you guys handle the logistics, like send it to them. And it seems to be basically zero ongoing operational cost, which is just blissful versus where we have been. So,
I mean, it's kind of a win-win. The more that we can find ways to reduce the friction in the process, the more likely you guys are to leverage branded merchandise for different use cases and different reasons. So we're always trying to find like, where are the friction points? Is it in the design process? Is it in the product selection process? Is it in the distribution? All those kinds of things, and make it easier and easier for people. So.
And you mentioned use cases there. like you already talked about employees and customers. I presume those are the major two use cases for startups.
Yeah, I mean, you're mostly either dealing with HR and like, employee engagement type folks, or you're dealing with like sales and marketing type, whether that means you're using it as some sort of customer acquisition tool or kind of a retention tool, when it comes to customers, or, the internal use cases, though, I've always found the most interesting, the employee anniversaries, the company milestone celebrations, all these different moments in time that come that an employee's at the company, even their birthdays and stuff. Like how do we make it really awesome? Like how do we help create really awesome experiences that leverage branded merchandise at these different touch points of people's journeys within the company? And that was kind of part of the founding story, is like we really wanted to focus on the internal kind of HR use cases, because I felt that when branded merchandise and swag is done really well, it's really valuable on the people that really already are bought into the company, the people that care about the company a lot, because it brings you closer together. And it didn't feel like there was another swag company out there that really cared or understood like the HR use case or the internal employee use case, because everything was kind of external giveaways all the time. Yeah. But I think they're equally important. But we kind of, we handle all different types of use cases.
The birthdays one is really, really cool. And especially, in this age of remote, it's like harder to build those relationships with employees. Like one way to kind of, build those relationships, and at least, kind of.
And it's not even just like it's not even just the company to the employee. It's also like the employee to the other employee.
That's
it's
cool.
Because if you're, let's say you're wearing a Wefunder hat and a hoodie or something, and you're out at like a bar or something like that, and somebody else is a fan of Wefunder, maybe they're an employee at Wefunder, you guys are instantly kind of connected in that way. Right. And we had this really weird story the other day where one of the people on our team was at a yoga class in, I think, Tennessee, like literally like random yoga class. And somebody else from SwagUp was also in the yoga class, and they didn't even live there. And the reason why they knew this is because they had one of our water bottles at the yoga class. And these two people had never had a chance to meet each other because they were hired in a remote environment and didn't even, they weren't really fully aware of each other, but they saw the water bottle, instantly connected over it. And then they're like, oh shit, like we work at the same company. Like I never had, I've never met you before. So it's like this physical kind of way of building bonds with people in an interesting, capacity.
Another use case, you talked about HR, employee engagement, talked about customer engagement. Another use case that is interesting for us is on the investor side. You've probably thought a lot about these kind of creative use cases, but imagine you're a startup founder who's raising capital on Wefunder. How might you use SwagUp to juice your Wefunder community round?
Well, I think the whole concept of a community round like plays really well into swag and merchandise, because the whole reason why companies are doing these community rounds, you're seeing big kind of party rounds where you bring a lot of angel investors and other founders in, is because they're trying to build this network around the company. It's all these people that really care about the product, can be helpful, can help find customers, all this kind of stuff. So they become these really strong evangelists. They're almost like an extension of the employees at the company. And in that sense, you want to build that bridge and you want to build that connection. You want to treat them like they're really part of the family and part of the team. And swag is like just such an easy, huge way to do that. It's almost like the uniform. It's like, hey, you've got the shirt now, you've got the bottle, you've got the backpack. You're now part of the family. Like help us spread the word, help us evangelize. So I think it's one of those things. It's kind of like, putting gasoline on the fire. The community round is the fire that kind of builds that, advocacy group. And then you throw the swag on top and it just kind of ignites it and gives people something to talk about. It gives, next time they're out in an event and they're, they have the, the bottle of the company that they invested in, it's something that they can then talk about to people that they're around. It becomes like this, conversation starter as well. So I think it's just like such a natural fit for, swag and community rounds to kind of, go one to one.
Love that. Two specific questions on that. One, for the SwagUp community around, what is the swag? Like, what do you give it? Like, is it like, okay, you're investing $1,000. Like, what are people getting for that? What's Michael, CEO of SwagUp's like swag of choice? Is it a bottle? It sounds like you guys have water bottles. Like,
I mean, I love a good hoodie. Like if you can get something that's like a really nice, high quality cotton, kind of like streetwear type style. And a lot of it comes down to the design. Sometimes it's not just about the item, it's also about the design. So for me, Yeah, I think one of the things that we were talking about internally is like, calling investors part of like the launch team or something like that, where, they're kind of branded as part of this group, and all of the swag and merchandise has kind of limited edition logoing around like, hey, you're a launch team member or something like that. So I think that's how you can kind of elevate simple products sometimes.
Love that. Okay, so launch team, some kind of exclusive design, and then the super nice hoodie. Obviously, you guys are only working with the most quality merchandise. I speaking of which, I tried to make a t-shirt the other day. It was something like, why should rich people have all the fun? It was talking about like, let's let ordinary people invest. And I made this t-shirt. And it was, the quality of the t-shirt was terrible. The font was like so bad. My wife basically threw it in the trash as soon as I like unwrapped it. And I feel like that campaign, and marketing campaign, should have gone to Specsavers. Maybe that was a British campaign, but it was just like glasses store, and like there was kind of shots of like people wearing these terrible spectacles, and then the campaign should have gone to Specsavers. I feel like that's your next marketing campaign for SwagUp. Just the most ugly, disgusting swag should have gone to SwagUp. Okay,
there's plenty of it out there.
One other specific question, like for the hoodie, the SwagUp kind of investor perk, is it advertised on the Wefunder page? Like, should founders be kind of saying, if you invest $1,000, you get this hoodie, or is it like, it's a surprise and delight kind of, they invest without that hook, but then they get this in the mail and it's like, ooh, wow, like, I wasn't expecting that.
I don't know. I mean, anything's down for testing. I think there's something to be said about having different tiers. Like, okay, if you invest 1,000, you get X. If you invest 2,000, you get Y. If you invest 5,000, you get Z. Because people always like, they wrap their ego around being the best. And if you can kind of give them something very exclusive, it's almost like NFTs. It's like if you had a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape, like, you're saying something about yourself. And I think if you can do something that's like super limited edition, super high end at different tiers, and sometimes it doesn't always have to be just swag. For example, let's say somebody invests $10,000 through a community round. You could do something where you get this really awesome limited edition merchandise. Plus, like, you get to come to our office and
monthly
and
webinars or like dinner,
maybe bring them out
dinners.
to New Jersey and let them see the facility and do a tour, and then we go out to dinner. Like, I think you can kind of make it an all-encompassing kind of experience. So I think there's benefits to having different tiers, but there's also benefits to the whole surprise and delight, because when you're more likely to share something if you didn't realize you were going to get it, and in that moment you have that dopamine hit of like, wow, this is amazing, I didn't think I was going to get this and stuff. So I think it's worth trying different things and seeing what hits most. But I'd be more inclined to create different tiers that are upfront, kind of clear to people.
I mean, you have the benefit with that, right? Of like actually getting people to bump up to the next investment level. Is like,
exactly. It's like an upsell in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Have you guys considered NFTs as kind of adding that to the repertoire?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like where's the real substance and where's the kind of the hype. Because you don't just want to layer in like, oh well, SwagUp does like NFTs now just to say that we do it, and then it's just going to fizzle out and we don't actually believe in it, or we don't know how it fits into the broader strategy. So I don't know. I think there's a potential chance though, like, let's say you're doing SwagUp with one of our big customers and they have like an annual theme from a design standpoint. It might be cool to let one of the employees win kind of the rights to the the branding for that year's theme for all their merchandise or something. But it's not something that's like a top focus area for us. But obviously, like, paying attention and seeing like where the opportunities are. But for now, haven't really dug into it.
Right. Do you find like you and your team as well spend more of your time kind of persuading companies to use SwagUp for the swag they were already kind of planning on sending to their employees or customers? Or do you find yourself spending more time persuading founders that like there's a good ROI, there's a good marketing ROI on this investment, or employee engagement ROI on this investment, and so like almost kind of making the market,
Yeah. Well, I think in general, there's, obviously you always have like these normal distributions, and you're crossing the chasm where you have these, early adopters and people that are willing to take risks and stuff. So I think up until this point, it's been a lot of kind of, preaching to the choir. It's a lot of people that understand that, hey, building communities and building employee engagement and morale and connection are really important things. And they understand intuitively that, swag when done well is a big tool for making that happen. Yeah. So I don't think we have to do a ton of kind of like, convincing and, here's some data and thought points about like why you should be doing this. Obviously we do write some like blogs around these things, and there's different people at different spectrums of the curve. If you go up the market to like more enterprisey type companies that are a little bit more hesitant to spend money on these things, then you can show them, hey, here's some of the cool things that up and coming startups and high growth companies, because the high growth companies, in my opinion, are the ones that are kind of on the cutting edge of culture, and the ones that they set the trend, and they really care about like building the team and building the culture deliberately from day one. So I think that the bigger companies are looking for inspiration, and we do some stuff like Swag in the Wild, where we'll showcase some of what our customers have been doing and share it with them. But I think largely we're more convincing people that, hey, we are the much easier way to manage this process than, that you're already kind of doing yourself and you realize it sucks. So I think we're more selling time and convenience than we are the swag itself. But even when you break into a company, there's different people that have different perceptions of swag. So like you might start with the people that really get it. Maybe it's somebody who leads HR and they get you in the company. They're super excited about it, but maybe you have to do a little bit more kind of selling to get, the head of marketing involved, or maybe to get somebody who runs partnerships involved. So I think every company's a little different, but, fortunately, we've been able to kind of go into a captive audience and say, hey, we're a better solution in this space to help you scale up your use of this stuff. And by the way, as we make it easier and easier for you, let's start exploring other ways that you can leverage branded merchandise in ways that maybe you weren't before, but we can kind of unlock that creativity for you to start to think about how else to leverage it.
Yeah. You touched on kind of metrics and kind of analytics ROI there. I'm a pretty numbers driven person. And so the kind of more long-term kind of brand building, kind of, touchy-feely kind of ROI on investments, I'm like always, I don't know, I'm like, show me the short-term ROI, Is there data? Like, are they kind of, I'm sure a lot of people have tried really hard to kind of analyze this. Is there kind of, analytically based kind of, research that you guys point to say, hey, look, this is actually, or is it really just kind of, that stuff's really kind of impossible and it's just all kind of intuition and gut feel?
No, I don't know. I think that we could definitely do some more here to kind of, shepherd studies. I mean, there's definitely studies out there that show the impact of like gifting to people at different stages in the sales funnel. And do they show up to meetings, and do they, end up becoming customers, or does it help you retain a customer, all that kind of stuff. So like more in the corporate gifting side, and we have like integrations with corporate gifting platforms where we power the swag component, and then they have a lot of like the ROI analysis and like those use cases. We really just want to be kind of the supply chain that is really scalable, that people can leverage. But I think it's also like one of those things, kind of like, big branding. Like if you talk about Apple's 1984 commercial, where they're smashing the screen and everything, like it's very hard to measure something like that. But at the same time, think of, I don't know if you know the golf tournament, the Masters in the US,
the green jacket.
The green jacket, or you go there and they sell $50 million worth of merchandise when you get onto the property, and, seeing that iconic, yellow USA with the flag. And it's just, it's hard to describe the impact that has for the Masters brand and everything that they build, the mystique of the tournament around it. And I think there's a similar component for like companies that people really have a cult following for. The swag is a symbol of that, pride and that they have for that company. And, it's hard to really put an exact number on it, but I think that it has an incredibly high kind of emotional, attachment kind of impact on the people that care about it. So.
It would be cool to do you could imagine an A/B test. Like imagine if you're an investor on Wefunder, if you invest $1,000, then we send you some like, Wefunder swag in the mail, purchased through SwagUp, of course. And then we send it to 50% of our investors. And then we look at the difference in like follow-on investment rates. We could actually run that A/B test. It would be kind of cool for you guys to, for a company that has the liquidity of data to run that test, like that would be quite interesting.
You ever seen Cabal? It's a
I think
platform
so.
for like kind of managing your investor base. So like once you do a crowdfunding campaign or a Wefunder or whatever it might be, or even just normal VCs, you then upload them into Cabal, and Cabal becomes like almost like a CRM to manage your investors. And if you're doing it, investor updates or whatever, or you have some ask for them, you all do it in here. So you can probably tag people in Cabal. It's like, okay, they got the swag, they got the swag, and see how helpful each of those investors were over the next year or 2 years or something. So there's definitely, for sure, you can come in here from a data science, kind of perspective and run some fun tests. But I think, the biggest impact of it is sometimes hard to really put a number on.
This is just a funny story. We, at one point, this is like a year or two into when I was working at Wefunder, me and this intern worked on a project where when people made their first investment, I think it was if they invested $1,000, we would send them a postcard in the mail to say, thanks for making an investment. And we got the percentage of investors that made their second investment within 30 days of making their first investment. We got it from like 3% to 7% or something. It's like amazing. That's like huge. We really saw the needle move. Not swag, but like a postcard, and it just really showed me the power of doing that. The funny part of the story is this intern was like amazing designer. She was kind of like an artist, and the postcard was like a drawing of a computer screen with like one of those Windows error messages that pops up, and the drawing was like a white picket fence, like house and an American flag, and the error message said like, the American dream is broken, like let's fix it by investing in startups and Wefunder kind of thing. And several people emailed our CS team to say, I think there's a problem with your website. Like, I got this error message from this postcard in the mail. I think I'm not sure if we still send it, but certainly, sending, it wasn't even swag, but like sending postcard in the mail, like we saw it move the needle.
Yeah, one of the other things that comes to mind from some of our customers, one of them was Calendly, and then another was a big, financial fund. And they send either new candidates in the recruiting funnel, swag, to kind of get them to convert to taking an offer. And then another one, obviously, is just kind of like the more global new hire. But what ends up happening is you see this a lot on LinkedIn, where it becomes kind of this thing that, again, surprise and delight thing where people want to share it. Like, you'll never believe it. I was interviewing at Calendly and they sent me this gift like midway through the process. And, I ended up accepting the offer and I love it here. And, with the Calendly scenario, we actually saw a story on LinkedIn where somebody saw somebody post that box that they got and ended up applying at Calendly and then joined Calendly because they saw the recruiting box that was sent to the to the person, to the candidate. So I think there's this element too of virality that, hey, you're sending something physical that somebody wants to tell other people about and share. And if you put it on social media, you have this network effect of like, oh, wait, this is, that culture is really cool. I like what they're up to. Let me see if they're hiring. Let me apply. Let me join the company, like stuff like that. Like it very much happens. Like, we definitely can run some studies to kind of understand what the real impact of it, but we see it on a daily basis. So.
Yeah. It's the same for me. Like, our kind of gospel is, hey, if you recruit your customers as investors, then they're going to spend more money with you and they're going to tell more people about you and they're going to help you with hiring and do all these good things. Do I have any data on that? No. It's tough to kind of really measure and analyze that, but it's just, that's kind of the gut and intuition. And so you guys have a pretty awesome brand. Any secrets to your success in building? How long have you been running the company now? And what's been the key to the kind of building your brand in such a compelling way?
Yeah, so it's been about 5 years. End of May of 2017 is where we started, and building a good brand was part of the original kind of thesis because it's an incredible, incredibly competitive market. There's so many other swag companies out there, but to me, they felt very kind of old fashioned. You have old Web 1.1, like Web 1.0 kind of like e-commerce websites. And then you had like agency style businesses, that are kind of like localized businesses that can help you on a more micro scale. Yeah. And I was like, all right, let's build the brand that resonates with startups. Like, let's build something that makes it feel like you're almost buying SaaS. that is a more modern consumer experience. So that was always like from day one, we're like, all right, we have to build something that feels more modern, but also feels more kind of low friction. Like if you wanted, let's say you want to put one of these kits together, and we do bulk items and everything, but let's say you want to put one of these kits together. Historically, you'd have to kind of string that along from like lots of different vendors and figure it out. And we were like, hey, let's just make it really simple for people to onboard. Let people pick their items, design them right on the platform, let them make accounts for free. Let's not have like some sort of subscription fee where they can't like go through the door. So we've always been around like, how do you move people through the funnel and the process as quickly as possible? And building like a brand that is very customer centric and customer forward. Like, hey, we're here to support you and meet you where you are, not kind of put all the work on your side. And then, also from a design standpoint, we've just always really valued high quality design and, visual design. So, we do a lot of like 3D, a lot of like white space. We try to make it feel more clean and simple and modern. And I think those things go a long way. And then, building a real brand over time is just about delivering on a customer promise, over and over again. So it's like just being very deliberate about, okay, what do we do that's different than other people? And then do we constantly deliver on that promise? And then, over time, people will just constantly talk about us and tell other people about us. And that's really what builds, I think, like the strong kind of sustainable brand. So, you can try to manufacture it. I think in the beginning, we tried to make ourselves out to be bigger than we were, and try to design it in that sense. And I think it helped. But the other part is just like, provide a really great experience for customers, and they'll help build the brand for you.
Do you think, we've been thinking about this at Wefunder recently, the kind of product versus distribution question. Where do you come down? What's more important to building a fast growing, very successful company, product or distribution? Obviously you need both, but
yeah, I don't know. It's so nuanced. Obviously there's no one answer to say it's all about product or it's all about distribution, because a great product is not going to, catch fire, and great distribution of a shit product is just going to like not retain customers. But I also think it's a matter of like where the market is. If the market trends are pointing towards this space is really important to people and people care about it, then a good product alone, I think, can sometimes kind of carry itself, because the market dynamics are just carrying you. But if you're in a space and you're like a little bit early and you just have like this really great product, but the market's like not really ready for it, then you really have to focus on distribution, and you got to focus on customer education and getting it into the right channels, because people aren't really naturally looking for it. Like with swag, this is not a new concept. Obviously we've approached it from a new angle, but people are already kind of interested and looking for it and seeking it out. Then they find us and it's like, oh, this is a great product. Like, let's use this and like, let's retain. So I think it depends on kind of the market dynamics and if the market's ready for the solution or not. But, in general, I think it's having a good product or a great product can solve a lot of marketing challenges. I think a lot of companies spend a lot of money on marketing because they're trying to fill the void of like a bad product that's not able to market itself. And, one of the concepts that I always talk about is like this concept of a purple cow, because it's the Seth Godin book, and it's all about the idea of like the way that you really build a big brand and a company is by standing out and being different and being remarkable. And I think that if you build that into the company and the product, it naturally starts to take off because people want to tell other people about it. And I think that that's the most efficient way that you can build a sustainable business, because there's so many businesses out there that are all like distribution heavy, but they're not sustainable, because after a certain point, like 2 years, 3 years, if it's all about distribution, there's no real substance. It's going to start falling flat because it's a leaky bucket, basically. So I think, leading with the product is a more sustainable path. And then if you have a great product and you can layer in distribution, then you have kind of the holy grail, I think.
Yeah, it's a leaky bucket. And if you're kind of heavily relying on Facebook ads, let's say, then there's probably a law of diminishing returns in each channel. I was chatting to someone the other day, he was interviewing for our product team, and he said something that I never really thought of before is, you get addicted to kind of acquiring customers through digital ads. And then like, it's really hard to wean yourself off it, because you're spending so much money with Google, with Facebook, that then like, if you ever stop spending, your volume is going to collapse. And so you're kind of now like kind of trapped on this drug. Haven't really
I think it's a two-sided blade, because definitely what you said is true. And you want to have like more of a sustainable kind of diversified channel mix. But at the same time, I do think there's a lot of value from like day one running digital ads, because you're selling into a cold audience. You know, it's like people that don't know who you are, and you want to see like what messaging resonates. Do people actually care about this problem? You know, so you get some of that initial kind of validation. But there's also, I mean, there's a ton of companies out there that are really just like marketing arbitrages. You know, they don't even really have a product that matters to people, but it's just like they're able to buy attention for cheap and sell that attention for more. And that's like a business that's just all about distribution, you know, but I just don't find those to be like incredibly interesting.
Yeah. Coming to line, a couple of last questions for you. We talked a little about community rounds earlier, what we're up to at Wefunder. If there was one company that Michael, could invest in, that he'd be stoked to invest in, that they were willing to open up and let their customers and community invest, what would be the company?
Yeah, I was trying to think of this like when you brought it up earlier, and I think it would be Retool. I don't know if you've ever seen these guys, but it's a pretty interesting platform that, it's basically the idea that, you have all these different SaaS apps out there. If we look at our SaaS spin at SwagUp, we probably have close to 200 different SaaS platforms. And a lot of them are like slight iterations of each other. They do this one little thing really well, but most SaaS platforms are pretty basic. They're pretty straightforward, especially like project management workflow type stuff. And what Retool is, it's like, hey, let's give the power to the end user to build their own SaaS applications through kind of a mix of no code and integrations, so that you can build, like, let's say you want to build like a Zendesk Lite for your team to manage, support tickets. You can just have like data piping in from like a form, and then you can build your own views and Retool. It's kind of a very modular kind of, dashboarding tool that allows you to build kind of purpose-built apps. And I think it's just a really interesting way to build products and solutions really quickly, especially from an internal tooling standpoint. And I think that they have from what I've read, they have a pretty scrappy, efficient culture. They haven't raised a ton of money. I think they raised at like a pretty crazy valuation, but like a small amount of money, which is very counter kind of narrative. It's like, oh, like we're worth 500 million, but we're only going to raise 10 million or 20 million because we're super efficient.
I love that. Yeah.
So I like the culture that they've built, and I think that the product is kind of on the right side of history, where I don't know if we really need 5,000 different SaaS platforms that do all these small little things over and over again. So.
Well, I'll reach out to the guys at Retool, Michael, and when they launch their Wefunder campaign, I'll ping you to let you know that you can now invest in them. And you can send.
They do some swag through us too, so.
Oh, there you go. Maybe you can pitch them. Do my job for me. And when they launch, I'll send you a Wefunder hoodie to say thank you. A launch team on it. On that note, that's actually a separate question, but like, where do you come down on that kind of, raise a ton of money, like blow it up, great fast, like grab the land, versus, how aggressively have you guys raised versus, raising smaller amounts and being a little more frugal?
I like to say that I'm more of like an East Coast mentality versus a West Coast mentality. Because if you think about the US, you've got the East Coast major startup hubs are like New York and Boston, and now Miami, I guess, to a degree. And the West Coast is obviously, Silicon Valley and you have Seattle and some of those other areas. And the SF mentality is very like go, like let's go big, let's swing at big visions. And, I think, that whole mentality has changed the world for sure. And is probably responsible for the large majority of progress, in humanity. So there's 100% validity to that. There's validity to the whole blitz scaling method of like, let's go super, super fast. It's worked over and over again. But at the same time, I'm more of like a fundamentalist. I want to know that, okay, the business that we have is on a strong foundation. It's scalable. Yeah, like, because, there's a ton of businesses that blitz scale that you don't realize, you never find out if they're viable or not for like 10 more years or 15 more years. I mean, there's public companies right now that you still don't know if they're viable or not. And they've raised a ton of money, and there's no real clear path if they're ever going to be able to be profitable. So, and they've created a lot of economic value along the way, but I don't know if it's just a matter of kind of like passing on the baton to other people who will ultimately never make money off of it or not. But I'm more of like, I'm more of a fundamentalist, kind of try to grow more step by step sustainably, but at the same time, still pushing aggressively. Like I'm not satisfied with, 10, 20% growth. I want to see, I want to double the business over and over again. But in a way that we know we're going in the right direction, not like reckless. And then 4 years later, we try to figure it out and we spin out of control,
Love it. Last question. One piece of advice from your experience growing SwagUp over the last 5 years or so. One piece of advice for founders that are maybe a few years earlier than you on the journey.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to people. Companies are just a mix of people working together to solve problems, and the better people you have, and making sure that they have that right kind of scrappy day one hustle mentality, I think is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And what I would say in general is just raise the talent bar. Have really, really high standards as soon as possible, as early as possible. One of the things was, in the beginning, we didn't have much money. So we kind of sacrificed, I think, from a talent perspective. And we're like, oh, well, we'd rather, let's just get some young people in here that aren't expensive, because we need like bodies to throw at the problem. But looking back, I would have much rather taken all those situations than, instead of getting 3 young junior people, I'd rather get 1 really strong person and build around them, because 1, they don't need much management. 2, they're going to be way more impactful than anyone else that you're bringing in. And if they're impactful, it starts to drive revenue, drives profit, and you can start to invest around them much quicker than if you had the more junior people that you have to kind of coach along. Because at the end of the day, if you're getting people that aren't better than you at things, then you don't really gain any leverage. You're just kind of telling them what to do, and then they go do it. Versus you want people that you can rely on to, hey, like, run with the strategy, run with the execution, let me know what you need, and then let's go focus on some other important part of the business. So I think just raise the talent bar and have incredibly high expectations for people, and don't be scared to move on from people quickly if it's not the right fit.
Love that. I think it's Mark Zuckerberg talks about hiring people that you would be happy to report to. Kind of a similar idea. I really enjoyed the conversation, man. Thanks so much for making the time. Where can people go to learn about SwagUp? I guess swagup.com.
Yeah, swagup.com. I'm on Twitter a lot myself. Just my name, Michael Martocci. So I'm on there pretty actively, but we're all over the place.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Adventure Capital. I hope you laughed, took notes, shed a tear, and most importantly, feel ready to go off on your own adventure. And remember, whenever you're ready, Wefunder's here to help. Be sure to like and leave a review, gang.